Chapter 421. He was so timid that he practically didn't dare to look at the expressions of the surrounding holy water sect disciples. These holy water sect women all had extremely unsightly expressions, as if they would immediately pounce on him and tear him apart. He just knew that this was an arduous task. Senior brother Pang Zhang had sent him here purely to find trouble. Humph, go back and tell him that if he wants to know about our senior sister Chen's situation, then tell him to come over himself. But let's see if he dares or not. HM? That senior sister raised her eyebrows and looked at the ghost faction disciple provocatively. Another holy water sect disciple beside her started laughing. This kind of cowardly tortoise only knows how to use some despicable methods on the stage. He doesn't even dare to run over to our territory to behave atrociously, so don't even think about it. The ghost faction disciple cast a pleading look at Pang Zhang, but the latter glared at him in dissatisfaction with a taut face. The ghost faction disciple dejectedly returned to his seat and secretly said to Pang Zhang, "Senior brother, the holy water sect wants you to personally go over and ask. Are they worthy?" Pang Zhang sneered and rubbed his thumbs. In order to hide our abilities before the competition, we instead caused junior sister to suffer grievances. Now, we don't need to anymore. These holy water sect girls will soon know that our ghost faction isn't so easy to provoke. Pang Zhang gazed darkly at Xiao Mu. Xiao Mu keenly sensed his gaze and turned her head to look at him. Her pair of eyes that were as tranquil as an ancient well contained a 10,000-year-old chill, causing Pang Zhang to inexplicably shudder. Chen Hanzi's injury was simply a fuse. Following that, whenever the holy water sect disciples encountered members of the ghost faction, they would be extremely ruthless in their attacks. Both sides had injuries of varying severity. Overall, it was still the holy water sect that had the upper hand. As long as the holy water sect disciples were wary of the ghost faction's poisoning methods and seized the initiative, they would absolutely suppress the ghost faction with their orthodox cultivation techniques. After several rounds, the ghost faction disciples were all suppressed by the holy water sect girls and carried off the stage with heavy injuries. Ghost Surt's expression was very unsightly. At this time, Ning Bihuan defeated a ghost faction disciple with her silver spear and even heavily injured him. The ghost faction's elder Gue Bu De finally couldn't help but curse, "Eldest Miss Ning, you're too heavy-handed." It was fine if the holy water sect's people had accumulated grievances with the ghost faction, but even the Omni faction's Ning Bihuan, one of the 5 factions, treated the ghost faction's people like this. Elder Ghost didn't know what to say. His old face was solemn and taut. When he looked at Ning Bihuan, there seemed to be a raging fire burning in his eyes. However, Ning Bihuan didn't care. She raised her hand to stop Elder Ghost's words. "Since we agreed on a competition, then everyone should bring out their true abilities to fight. Everyone should rely on their own abilities. If you're afraid, you can just go on stage and admit defeat. I don't care." Once he finished speaking, he shrugged in an infuriating manner, as if he looked down on Elder Ghost. Ghost Surf was angered half to death by this clumsy Ning Bihuan. He glared angrily at Pang Zhang and the others. "Why haven't you carried your junior brother down yet? How shameful. He didn't pick a good day." After these few matches, more than half of their Hellgate disciples were seriously injured. How unlucky was this? Right now, he was a bit vexed about Pang Zhang's previous willfulness. If it weren't for him starting this conflict, how could things have developed to such an unmanageable state? Chapter 422. In the afternoon, the scorching sun had already risen to its highest point, and the entire area around the stage was filled with a fiery atmosphere. This match was between a Coitus faction female disciple and a Daybreak sect male disciple. The Coitus faction female disciple threw herself into the male disciple's arms as soon as she came up, startling him into retreating repeatedly. That female disciple was still muttering, "Little big brother, don't hurt me," when the Daybreak sect disciple suddenly rushed in front of her and smashed her to the ground with a slap. The entire area was silent for a moment before bursting into cheers. Arbor speechlessly looked above the stage. The Daybreak sect disciple seemed to have been provoked, and his entire body was like a little calf as he exerted a burst of brute force. He grabbed the Coitus faction female disciple's hair with one hand and even slapped her with his other hand. In the beginning, the Coitus sect disciple was still crying out softly, "Ayu, oh, oh." Then, he was beaten until his true colors were revealed. Flustered and exasperated, he roared, "You little bastard, stop. This old lady's hair. This old lady's face. You freaking stop right there. Everyone, come out." The Coitus faction female disciple summoned her mystic beast. She was about to go mad from anger. Her makeup, her image, her beautiful clothes, and her headdress. They were all completely ruined by this barbarian in front of her. So angry, so angry, so angry. The Coitus faction female disciple's first sentence after summoning her mystic beast was to directly order her mystic beast to eat the bull-like youth in front of her. The Daybreak sect disciple also summoned his mystic beast. Everyone couldn't help but be amused when they saw this. It really was a bull-like creature. This bull-like creature was very large, and when it stood on the stage, the two people were directly squeezed to the edge of the stage. The fat rabbit summoned by the Coitus faction disciple was simply comical and laughable in front of the bull-like creature. Therefore, everyone soon saw that the Coitus faction female disciple and her fat rabbit were completely crushed by the Daybreak sect disciple and the mystic beast bull-like creature. The fat rabbit was being trampled under the bull-like creature's hooves, and it truly looked somewhat pitiful. The Coitus faction female disciple was no longer as coquettish and flirtatious as when she first went up on stage. At this time, she was beaten into a sorry state. Her face was ashen, and her eyes were spitting fire as she angrily said, "Wait. I admit defeat." The one-sided beating finally came to an end. The female disciple of Coitus sect cried miserably, and was fiercely glared at by Granny Witch. "Useless thing, you still have the face to cry?" "Master." Tears streamed down the woman's face. She felt wronged. How could she have known that the barbarian bull would completely ignore her charm technique? Did he think that she liked to throw herself at him? That was one of the basic cultivation techniques of the Coitus faction. Unfortunately, before she could fully display her charm technique, she was viciously beaten by that little brat barbarian bull. It was too infuriating. "Go back and train hard." Granny Witch's cold words caused this Coitus sect disciple to involuntarily tremble all over. Shishia Valley's Valley Master couldn't help but sigh in relief when he saw that this beating had finally ended. He continued to call out numbers with a smile on his face. Number 82, Holy Water Sect Disciple Arbor accepts the challenge. Shishia Valley's Valley Master was abruptly startled. Under everyone's puzzled gazes, he continued to recite, Ghost Faction Disciple Cho, and the audience was in an uproar. Everyone was too familiar with number 82. Wasn't this the number that the Holy Water Sect's young lady changed to? Shouldn't her opponent be that Daybreak Sect disciple Mu Liangda? Why did she change again? Chapter 423. Shishia Valley's Valley Master was stupefied halfway through his recitation. That day, he had personally witnessed the little girl brazenly switching numbers with someone else in order to directly challenge a Daybreak Sect disciple named Mu Liangda on the stage. But what was happening now? Duan Yu coldly glared at Mu Liangda. However, Mu Liangda merely pretended not to know why everyone was making a racket and maintained a chuckle. Mu Liangda, you weren't number 82 from the start, right? Duan Yu coldly questioned. Everyone from Daybreak Sect looked at Mu Liangda himself in bewilderment. The sect master's daughter, Liang Qingqing, also frowned. Mu Liangda, is what senior brother Duan Yu said true? The number you reported at the start was that of Cho An from the Ghost faction? Junior sister Qingqing, I'm also not sure about this matter. Mu Liangda continued to smile and feign ignorance. He wouldn't honestly admit that Cho An had already come to him to talk about this before the small banquet. The two of them discussed and both felt that since the little girl mentioned it before, she would definitely tamper with the number drawing and change it to Mu Liangda's opponent no matter what. Cho An wanted to give that little b** TCH a surprise, so she secretly instructed Mu Liangda that she would give him a number hint during the drawing. If the little girl really came to ask him, he would report Cho An's number to the little girl. Mu Liangde naturally approved with both hands raised. Since he was bound to have a battle with that little girl, he was quite happy for someone to challenge the little girl before him so that he could figure out her ins and outs. After all, he was still a bit flustered by the meaningful gazes that several people around him were giving him. If the little girl didn't have something outstanding about her, why were they all staring at him with those strange gazes? Chowan truly hit it off with Mu Liangde when she came to find him and conspired against the little girl. Both of them obtained their own desires and achieved their goals. Xiao Mu was originally exceptionally intelligent, so she naturally understood what Duan Yu could figure out after thinking about it for a bit. Pretty good. Jackals of the same lair even learned to scheme against the little girl. She would let them know that in the face of strength, all schemes and tricks were nothing. Arbor stood up from his seat, and Emolien coldly looked at the Daybreak sect disciple, Mu Liangde, who was secretly pleased with himself. There was still a refined and courteous smile on Mu Liangde's lips, but when his gaze met the Crown Prince's extremely cold and oppressive gaze, he couldn't help but quickly avert his gaze as his body inexplicably trembled slightly. Mu Liangde. When the little girl walked to the front of the stage, she suddenly turned around, and her eyes shot toward Daybreak Sect's seating area like lightning. She coldly said, "Since you want to see my strength first, then I'll let you see it. I hope you have the courage to accept my challenge in the next match. Don't be a coward." Ugly. Everyone was speechless. Mu Liangde's expression immediately turned extremely ugly, as though it had been painted green. Why was he a coward? Even his own sect's disciples were looking at him with disdain. What was going on? Duan Yu sneered, "Mu Liangde, you're a Daybreak sect disciple. You should be very clear about the situation of the 3 sects and 5 factions. It won't do you any good to be too close to people from the Ghost faction. You understand?" When Mu Liangde saw the gazes his senior and junior brothers and sisters cast over, he felt so stifled that he almost couldn't take it anymore. He and Chowan were merely taking what they each needed, so why did it sound like he had betrayed the sect and colluded with the Ghost faction in Duan Yu's mouth? Chapter 424. Everyone, please don't misunderstand. Mu Liangde hastily said, "Senior brother Duan Yu, I really didn't get close to the Ghost faction." Duan Yu waved his hand, not wanting to speak with him anymore. Liang Qingqing also glanced at him disappointedly. "Senior brother Mu, it's wrong of you to associate yourself with the Ghost faction." Mu Liangde opened his mouth, but he was suppressing a surge of anger in his heart. He sat there sullenly as his gaze drifted towards the stage. He saw the little girl steadily walking up the stairs onto the stage. A snow leopard with white fur landed at her feet with a whoosh. Chowan leaped onto the stage with a very lithe posture. It was impossible to tell that she had her hand chopped off a few days ago and was on the brink of death. Chowan's gaze landed smugly on Arbor's face. "What, very surprised, right?" Her voice was very hoarse, as if it had been whipped by countless vines. It was terrifyingly coarse. "I'm not surprised. I just didn't expect that someone would be so stupid as to rush to court death," Arbor said dryly as he shook his head. "*TCH. Chowan shouted roughly, her eyes glaring with a venomous glint. "Have you heard of a saying? A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes." Chowan's right hand poked out from her sleeve, and everyone involuntarily sucked in a cold breath when they saw it. This person's right arm didn't look like a human hand at all. It was more like a piece of withered wood, and her 5 fingers and fingernails were twisted like long withered vines. "Demonic cultivator!" Someone suddenly shouted. "Little junior sister, be careful. This person fused with the power of a demonic plant." Ha 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 ha. Chowan looked up to the sky and laughed smugly. She flipped open her gray headscarf, revealing a face so fair that it was somewhat strange. "Is my face beautiful?" She used that hand that was twisted like a withered vine to gently caress her fair and smooth face. "Is it beautiful?" How should he put it? That face was quite beautiful when taken apart, but when put together, it made people feel very awkward. It was like a fake face, with a stroke here and a piece there. When put together, there was no sense of harmony at all. Arbor shook his head. Ugly. Cho-En's face stiffened, and she said angrily, "What do you know? My previous face was 10,000 times more beautiful than this. It's all because of you, because of you." She approached Auber step by step, pointed at one of her eyes, and asked with a coarse smile, "Can you tell that this is a fake eye?" Auber nodded. "Don't be so angry. Your eyeballs might fall out." Everyone was speechless. Why was the style so strange? "Ah!" Cho-En shouted. She was simply about to go mad with anger. She originally wanted to scare the little slut, but who knew that the stoic face was expressionless from beginning to end? Shouldn't a normal girl at least be a little shocked when they saw her fake eyes? "Do you know who I am?" Auber shook his head. "I don't know you. You don't know me, ha ha. You don't know me, ha 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 ha." Cho-En felt that her words were extremely sarcastic. Her enemy didn't know her at all, but she was in so much pain because of this enemy in front of her day and night. How laughable was this? Cho-En's one eye was tearing up from laughing. "Do you still remember Nyen Kue who went to Shijiu City to kill you? I am his master. The master of that pitiful worm who self-destructed after you crushed his soul." Chapter 425. She didn't reveal a shocked expression like the others, nor did she point at Cho-En and shout, "So it's you." The little fellow only tilted her head and thought for a moment before nodding and uttering an, "Oh." Everyone, why did they feel like they would be angered to death if they conversed with the little girl? You finally revealed your background with surging passion and deep hatred, right? It was supposed to be very exciting and should have been a gasp of surprise. However, the other party merely threw an "oh" at you indifferently, like a basin of cold water drenching you from head to toe. All of your excited emotions abruptly disappeared. Cho-En trembled in anger. "You don't remember Nyen Kue? I feel that whether I remember one of your subordinates or not doesn't have much to do with our current battle." Auber patted the snow leopard's head indifferently. "After saying so much, can we get to the point?" She felt that these people were very boring. Everyone liked to talk a lot of nonsense when they came up. With so much time to talk, the battle could have already ended. Cho-En looked at Auber gloomily. "You're not a level 10 mystic cultivator yet. Don't you think it's too fake to borrow someone else's mystic beast to fight? Can it be as fake as your face? You. B*TCH." These words simply pierced her girlish heart full of holes, making her feel like she was in hell, unable to see the light again. Auber knitted his brows and pointed at Cho-En, "Go tear her mouth. It's so dirty." The snow leopard abruptly charged forward. Cho-En stretched out her 5 claws, and her withered vine-like arms swept toward the snow leopard's head with a whoosh. She shouted sternly, "You're breaking the rules too much. This snow leopard isn't yours at all. You can't let it participate in the battle. If it's not mine, then is it yours? Why don't you make it listen to you?" Auber coldly followed up. "Ah! Come out." Cho-En's eyes shot out a cold and vicious glint. With a furious shout, a very long centipede suddenly burrowed out from her side. The most disgusting thing was that there was actually an ugly human face on the centipede's head. As it crawled, that face kept faintly facing you, and several hundred pairs of slender legs densely stretched out. Qiao Mu jumped back a step. Although her small face was expressionless, her entire body was bristling. Fortunately, the snow leopard took a step forward and stood in front of her, slapping the human-faced centipede. The little fellow stomped on the ground and charged towards Cho-En. With a ferrule in his hand, the profound energy in his entire body surged. He was already in a state of violent rage. So, a line of fire shot out from the ferrule, directly breaking through the solid stone tiles of the arena, scraping out a shallow gully, and surging towards Cho-En's feet. Cho-En did not panic. She swung out her vine-like arm and smashed it into the incoming line of fire. A slender figure had already arrived in front of Cho-En. Without saying a word, a ferrule struck towards Cho-En's abdomen. Cho-En's pupils constricted. She hurriedly released her vines and wrapped them around her abdomen. Bang! Unexpectedly, the little guy changed his move very quickly and punched Cho-An's forehead. This punch carried a strong gust of wind as it smashed into her forehead, causing Cho-An to retreat several steps. Mu Liangde was watching from below, and his eyes had already revealed a grave expression. As expected, this little girl was very formidable. Her combat strength seemed to be incomparable to a level 8 mystic cultivator's cultivation. Compared to level 8 mystic cultivators of the same level, she was much stronger in terms of speed and explosive power. 10 o'clock ends. See you tomorrow. Chapter 426. Crack! The sound of her forehead cracking entered Cho-An's ears, causing her hair to stand on end. B*TCH. B*TCH. Ah! Cho-An trembled as she reached out to touch her forehead. She felt as if something had ruptured under her skin. Back then, she was implicated by Nian Kuei's self-detonation. Although she used a level 4 defensive mystic weapon at the critical moment and barely managed to save her life, she lost one eye. All the skin on her body shattered and even festered due to the explosion. Her father rushed her to the ghost sect and begged ghost physician Lu Yizhi to treat her. She was mended piece by Lu Yizhi. Her face was unnatural and uncoordinated compared to other people's normal faces. She knew better than anyone else. More than anyone else, she wanted to regain her face that originally belonged to her. But was it possible? Impossible. Because of this woman in front of her, she had already lost her face forever. But now, this woman was so cruel that she even wanted to destroy her fake face? Cho-An was that commandery Princess Hui, and who was doted on by everyone back then. At this moment, she was staring at the little girl standing in front of her with a sinister eye. If she hadn't coincidentally bumped into her in Xixia Valley this time, she still wouldn't have known who the commoner village girl from Shijiu City that the Crown Prince had been protecting so well was. After her accident back then, her father felt that something was amiss. Nian Kuei couldn't have self-detonated for no reason, so perhaps someone was scheming against her behind the scenes. Her father quickly sent people out of the capital to Shijiu City to investigate the whole story. However, not long after, her father secretly came to tell her that the people he sent out were all intercepted and killed by His Highness the Crown Prince. In the future, they probably couldn't send people to Shijiu City to investigate anything. Otherwise, they would definitely infuriate the Crown Prince and cause unnecessary trouble. His Highness the Crown Prince was warning them not to touch that person in Shijiu City again. Ha 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 ha. Commandery Princess Hui and was laughing so hard that she nearly choked. Suddenly, a piece of dead wood shot out from under her perfectly fine chest lapel and struck Arber's head. Arber had been paying attention to this mentally unstable woman. When she was laughing and crying, Arber was already on guard against her. As a result, this piece of dead wood that suddenly drilled out from under her chest didn't hurt Arber at all. Instead, it was broken by her with a backhand slap of her ferrule. I didn't expect that my commandery Princess Hui, and of the vassal king of an Nan's estate would have such a day. Hui turned her head and looked deeply at Emolienne. Your Highness, do you regret it? Emolienne's slender brows were completely furrowed. However, Duanyu suddenly jumped up from his seat and shouted, "See! I told you that it was your love debt that had implicated our Jojo." Emolienne turned to glare fiercely at Duanyu, feeling extremely impatient with this commandery Princess Hui En. Back then, if the vassal king of an Nan hadn't sensed his intentions and immediately sent Hui En out of the capital to become a disciple of the ghost sect, how could he have let this babbling woman off? What an inexplicable woman! She should have known when she started talking to herself and making a move on his Chow Chow. Karma was a circle. What was wrong with his darling taking revenge on her? Could it be that she was the only one allowed to kill people as she pleased and others weren't allowed to retaliate? Who was she pretending to be the victim for? Chapter 427. Arber furrowed his brows. For some reason, he felt uncomfortable in his heart when he saw that masquerade woman looking at Emolienne with a mournful expression. You're not allowed to look at me and act pitiful. You're not allowed to act. Arbor tilted his head and suddenly shot up, sending waves of mystic energy toward Commandery Princess Hui, and below him. The current Commandery Princess Hui, and already struck fear into everyone's hearts. Strips of dead wood actually burrowed out of her body and wriggled as if they were alive. That scene was truly too beautiful, and people could not bear to look at it directly. Master, what's going on? Are demonic cultivators such terrifying existences? Doya covered her mouth with both hands, a trace of horror on her face. Lu Yun shook her head and said, "No, she shouldn't be a pure demonic cultivator. This ghost faction disciple was originally a mystic cultivator. Some people in this world can't open their mystic meridians and become a mystic cultivator, so they don't hesitate to use crooked methods to merge their bodies with evil beasts and plants to pursue the realm of a demonic cultivator. This ghost faction disciple is already a level 10 mystic cultivator, so she shouldn't be pursuing a demonic cultivator, right?" Lu Yun was perplexed after much thought. Yong Shirong also nodded repeatedly on the side. Murong Soon looked at Commandery Princess Hui, and on the stage. At this moment, the area below her neck was completely enveloped by intertwined dead wood. It was as if she was wrapped in a cocoon made of dead wood. Other than her head being intact, every other part of her body could no longer be called a human's. Xiao Mu looked down at the puppet inside the withered wooden cocoon from above. Suddenly, she recalled the ferrule in her hand into her conscious and replaced it with a normal bow and arrow. Ha 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 ha. The dead wood cocoon crazily wriggled its body, and its head strangely tilted toward the sky. When it looked at Arbor, a vicious glint flowed through its single eye. Several hundred dead wood shaved out of the cocoon and simultaneously whipped toward Arbor in midair. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Arbor pulled back his bowstring, constantly changing his position in the air, and with astonishing speed, he kept shooting arrows at the cocoon. The deadwood cocoon went berserk, and the thousands upon thousands of deadwood roots twisted and lashed at Xiao Mu. Floating flash! Arbor's figure instantly disappeared from the spot where he was wrapped in the dead wood. When he reappeared, he was already standing behind the dead wood cocoon. He was still continuously shooting arrows at the dead wood cocoon. He was continuously drawing out a large number of arrows from the purple storage talisman. Everyone had already lost count of how many arrows this little girl had shot. Only Mo Lien, Duan Yu, Bailey Shi, the three peak masters, and the sect masters saw it very clearly and calculated it very accurately. 286, 287, 288 arrows. The little girl stopped and held the bow and arrow in midair. She looked coldly at the inhuman thing that kept going crazy and whipping the arena with a withered branch. Ah! Ah! Commandery Princess Hui, and had completely sunk into insanity. At this time, the little girl suddenly spoke. The human body has 409 acupuncture points. Among them, the 108 acupoints were more important. Now that you're in this ghastly state, I can't even see the acupuncture points below your neck clearly. So, just in case, I shot 288 arrows at you. That's about all the acupuncture points, right? The little girl muttered to herself. Your arrows are useless against me. Commandery Princess Hui, and roared angrily. When Lu Yizhi was supported by his retainer, Qiu San, he stared coldly at the stage and shook his head in disappointment. Truly a useless thing. Even after swallowing the evil body pill, it was still useless. He couldn't even beat a 12 or 13-year-old girl. Qiu San's eyes were filled with fear. Sir, you're right. Look at that lady from the Qiao family. Her methods are so cruel and vile. She's not an easy person to deal with. Humph. Lu Yizhi's eyes turned cold. I think it's because Hui An is too weak. Such a waste of my precious evil body, Dan. What a pity. Lu Yizhi shook his head. If he had known that she was so weak, he would not have given it to her. He had found all kinds of medicinal ingredients and spent at least 2 years to refine this pill that was infused with the blood essence of the evil plant. What a pity, what a pity. Chapter 429. Sir, should I help you back? Cho-san asked quietly as he supported Lu Yizhi. Since that woman called Hui and was clearly a useless pawn, there was no need for them to continue watching. However, Lu Yizhi's eyes were still fixated on Arbor on the stage. He coughed a few times in a low voice, conjecture and confusion in his eyes. I really didn't expect that a small continent like Seekong planet in the lower star domain would have such a brilliant mystic technique. Lu Yizhi muttered to himself as he stared at the two people on the stage with a hint of hesitation in his eyes. This is nothing. In our Shuntian prefecture, there are probably plenty of low-level and mid-level mystic techniques like this, Cho-san said disdainfully. Low-level and mid-level mystic technique? Lu Yizhi sneered. Cho-san, you've been by my side for so long, but your eyesight is getting worse. Cho-san was taken aback. How brilliant can this mystic technique executed with a normal bow and arrow be? Using a normal bow and arrow to destroy the amalgamation of a level 10 mystic cultivator and a demonic cultivator is the terrifying part of this mystic technique. Lu Yizhi knew better than anyone that Hui An's current body was completely wrapped in that withered tree cocoon. Other than the area above her neck, there were originally no openings. Cho-san, in the eyes of the Chow family's little miss, that amalgamation of demonic plants that we thought was flawless is actually full of openings. Lu Yizhi lamented. Otherwise, how could she have hit Hui An's vitals with every arrow? How could Hui An survive after detonating these explosive arrows? At this time, Commandery Princess Hui An had already stepped onto the path of self-destruction. She lowered her head in horror and saw that her cocoon-like body was currently exploding inch by inch. The ground was already covered in a thick layer of withered vines and broken wood. After the outer layer of cocoon peeled off, the body inside was truly riddled with holes and was extremely horrifying. Xixia Valley's Valley Master braced himself and jumped onto the stage that was in a complete mess. He first speechlessly glanced at Arbor, who was standing at the edge of the stage, before sighing. He walked to Arbor's side and turned to the people below the stage to announce, "Holy Water Sect's disciple, Arbor, wins this match." He turned around and glanced at the badly mutilated thing on the ground and shook his head. He thought to himself that this female disciple of the Ghost faction was probably not going to survive. After everyone heard Xixia Valley's Valley Master's announcement, they were dazed for a good few seconds. Then, as if they had regained their wits, the entire place erupted into a clamor. Mixed in with the angry roars of the Ghost faction disciples and the cheers of the Holy Water Sect disciples, so it was truly very chaotic. Arbor jumped down from the arena expressionlessly and walked straight in the direction of his own sect, ignoring the glares of the Hellgate disciples along the way. No one knew that under that stoic face of hers, there were also some small fluctuations in her mood. She had learned this explosive arrow technique from the Spirit Division Records technique chapter. To be honest, she still hadn't figured out what level of mystic technique the Spirit Division record was, but from the looks of it now, it really didn't seem that simple. Ever since it revealed its true form and flew into her consciousness on its own, she felt that this lousy book wasn't as simple as it seemed. Now that she looked at it, it was even more not simple. Any random minor technique in the technique chapter could explode Hui An's supposedly powerful fusion body. Xiao Mu suddenly paused in her footsteps and turned her head slightly to the side. Chapter 430. Right in front of her, Peng Zhang was being pressed down by several Ghost faction disciples. His face was brimming with fury, and his eyes were bloodshot as he glared at her. If it weren't for the Ghost faction disciples holding him back, Peng Zhang would have already rushed over and probably wanted to beat her up. What a baffling person. His heart ached for his junior sister. Could it be that Arbor deserved to stand on the stage as a live target for his junior sister to slap? Victory or defeat depended on one's ability, so what was there to be unconvinced about? What he hated the most was this kind of person who pestered endlessly after losing. Arbor glanced at Peng Zhang before disdainfully withdrawing her gaze. She walked past the Ghost faction members and briskly ran back to her sect. Suddenly, she heard everyone's gasps. The Holy Water Sect senior sisters who were originally smiling at her from afar abruptly changed their expressions, and they cried out involuntarily, "Little junior sister, be careful." A gust of wind came from the back of Auber's head, and an icy chill immediately hung on her stoic face. It turned out that Hui An was struggling with her broken body as she rushed down the stage. She snatched a sword from a Ghost Faction disciple's hand and threw it at her back with a vicious glint in her eyes. As expected, she was a sore loser. Since she dared to sneak attack her, she would die without a burial place. Just as she was about to turn around, an extremely fast, moon-white figure landed beside her with a whoosh. The figure harshly pulled her into his embrace with his left hand, and at the same time, he raised his right hand and spread open his fingers, throwing out a leaping ball of purple flames. After the flames swept past the flying sword, that pitiful sword turned into ashes before everyone's eyes and disappeared inch by inch. Hui uncovered her fake face that had long deformed in fright. Because of her violent movements, one of her eyeballs really did fall out of its socket. The instant she covered her face with her hand, her entire body was already enveloped by a ball of purple flames. The little fellow blinked and laid in Emolien's embrace. A comforting, extremely faint, and relaxed aura tightly enveloped her. Everyone present simultaneously widened their eyes, and their expressions changed as they looked at the Ghost Faction female disciple who was struggling and screaming while being enveloped by the purple flames. Outside the arena, Lu Iji's expression also changed for the first time as he stared in horror at the youth in white who had thrown out the purple flames. His retainer, Cho San, also sucked in a breath of cold air. "Sir, where did this youth come from? How could this be?" "Hua Ling." Lu Iji shook his head and muttered to himself, "Impossible. How could one comprehend the 5 spirit origins in this kind of place? Could it be?" Cho San leaned close to Lu Iji and pointed upwards. "Like us. Which mana head sent them over?" "Impossible." Lu Iji shook his head in absolute denial. "If someone from the 6 prefectures came, there's no way we wouldn't have heard of it." "That's true." Cho San also felt puzzled and nodded. Then could it be that this youth really comprehended the 5 spirits' origin powers on Sikong planet? Lu Iji shook his head repeatedly. "The fire spirit origin he comprehended is too powerful. I've never seen it even in Shuntian prefecture. Impossible, impossible, impossible." This simply didn't conform to the rules and regulations. Regardless of how conflicted Lu Iji and his retainer, Cho San, were in disbelief, the raging purple flames had already enveloped Commandery Princess Hui An's entire body. The little fellow turned around and coolly looked at Commandery Princess Hui An, who was howling miserably as she was roasted by the flames. Chapter 431. Sir. Do you think that youth was sent down by one of the aristocratic families from the 6 prefectures to gain experience? Cho San still didn't believe that someone could comprehend the fire spirit's origin at such a young age in this insignificant Sikong planet in the lower star domain. If that was true, then what kind of frightening talent was that? Lu Iji didn't say anything else and silently stared at the stage for a while before turning around and quietly leaving with his attendant Cho San. He could only rejoice that he had only given a demonic body pill and not a level 12 mystic breakthrough pill. Otherwise, his losses would have been even greater. Hui An wasn't of great use. At this time, Hui An's eyes were filled with fear, bewilderment, bitter tears, vexation, struggle, and disappointment. However, none of these emotions entered the Crown Prince's eyes. His gaze didn't even linger on her for half a second. Hui An, whose face was contorted from the pain of being burned by the purple flames, wailed miserably. No. He didn't even look at her. He didn't even shift his gaze. "Ah. Father, Hui An is in so much pain. So much pain." Only then did she remember the warning her father gave her before he sent her to the gates of hell. "Don't provoke that person in Shijiu City again, or else even father won't be able to save you." Emolien didn't care about how bitter and regretful Commandery Princess Hui An was. Even now, his heart was still thumping madly. When he saw that sword heading straight for the little fellow's back, Emolien felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. This Hui and simply deserved to die 1,000,000 times. He even had the urge to skin her alive. Reaching out to hold the little fellow's small hand, Emolien lowered his head to examine her from head to toe. Seeing that she was unscathed, he sighed in relief. "Thank goodness you're all right." Auber looked up at him and suddenly patted his chest lightly. Her dark eyes clearly said, "Don't be afraid, what could happen to this darling?" Emolien suddenly hugged her tightly, chuckling softly as he hugged her. His darling was so funny. Xiao Mu tried her best to raise her head in his arms and stretch out her small paws to push him away. However, for some reason, his aggrieved voice from back then kept echoing in her mind, "Don't push me away, don't push me away." Auber withdrew his claws somewhat sullenly, thinking to himself, maybe what happened just now really scared him a little. Men are really too easily frightened. Auber lifted his chin helplessly, put his little hand behind his back, and patted him gently. Murong soon immediately jumped up, but before she could angrily yell, "D***punk, let go of my disciple," Xixia Valley's Valley Master, this good-natured person, jumped out first and shouted, "Next match. Holy Water Sect disciple Su Shanshan accepts the challenge of Daybreak Sect disciple Liang Qingqing." The crowd's gazes that were on Emolien and Yi Zichen immediately shifted back to the arena. However, the shock in his heart towards the youth could not be calmed down for a long time. Only a small cluster of purple flames was left. It fell to the ground and slowly burned. As for Hui En, she had already been burned to ashes at some point in time. Far away in Guanlon City, the old prince of the vassal king of an Nan's estate suddenly received a report from the people guarding the ancestral hall. He hastily rushed to the ancestral hall and collapsed on the ground when he saw his daughter's eternal life lamp extinguished. Hui En, she died. She didn't even leave behind a word before she died. Oh, his daughter. The old prince was overcome with grief. Princess Anam rushed over and burst into tears the moment she entered the room. Chapter 432. Your Highness, what exactly is going on? Tell me what happened, tell me. Princess Anam felt like her heart was about to shatter. She only had a son and a daughter. Her eldest son was away most of the time, while her daughter was a caretaker. Several years ago, an inexplicable self-explosion destroyed her daughter. She had asked her husband countless times what happened, but he refused to tell her. After that, her daughter was sent to the ghost sect for treatment. She originally thought that her daughter would come back this year no matter what. Who would have expected that after waiting for so long, she would end up seeing her daughter die before her own? Princess Anam was infuriated, and she pulled the old prince to continuously interrogate him about the matter. The old prince remained silent from beginning to end, causing Princess Anam to be so anxious that she paced around him in circles. "Say something. My daughter died tragically, but as her mother, I don't even have the right to know?" The vassal king of Nan looked at the princess consort and sighed deeply. "I will send people to investigate this matter. Is it related to that self-explosion several years ago?" The princess consort was unable to restrain her anger. "You still won't tell me why that person self-exploded. Tell me, did someone deliberately frame my Hui En?" "Princess consort, it's not that I don't want to tell you. You won't benefit from knowing this matter." The vassal king of Nan understood his princess consort too well. She was used to making her own decisions and couldn't tolerate a grain of sand in her eyes. She was already so strict with those concubines and concubines' daughters who didn't pose any threat in the inner court, let alone if she knew that the self-explosion back then was entirely due to someone else's revenge after Hui An's willful and reckless behavior. She had doted on Hui An since she was young, so she wouldn't find fault with herself when something happened and would definitely blame it all on the other party. If she knew that the crown prince also had a hand in the back, with the princess consort's personality, she definitely wouldn't take things lying down. He understood his highness too well. He usually looked gentle and cheerful and didn't seem to get angry, but once he wanted to deal with you, it definitely wouldn't be as simple as killing you. He would definitely dig deeper and uproot you. Several years ago, it was he who made a prompt decision to withdraw quickly and immediately send Hui An out of the capital. Otherwise, Hui and would probably have died back then. My Wu family is not to be trifled with in Guanlon City. What are you worried about, Your Highness? Tell me. The princess consort questioned angrily. Recently, the Duan family has been choosing noble ladies for the second son of the third branch. If you have time, bring a few more maidservants to visit the Duan family. The old prince straightened out his mood, stood up, and left after saying this. King consort Wu Hongma coldly watched as the vassal king of Nan walked out. She gnashed her teeth and said, "Do you think I won't be able to find anything if you don't say anything? Hui don't worry. Mother will definitely avenge you. Whoever dares to touch you, Mother will turn their entire family into ashes." Eternally lost, my Zhou's section break. After 1.5 days of competition, the top 20 were decided. Disciples from the 3 sects and 5 groups were selected. However, among them, the Ghost sect suffered the most. Among the 3 sects, the Holy Water sect and the Heavenly Tao sect had 4 disciples each. The Daybreak sect had 3, the Purple Firmament faction had 4, and the Omni faction and Myriad faction had 2 each. Only the Ghost sect was the most pitiful, with only Peng Zhang being selected. Moreover, during the competition, Peng Zhang's level 10 Mystic Beast, the 1,000-faced venomous spider, had bitten many people from the other sects, causing Arbor to be very busy with detoxification. How infuriating! It caused her to have to save people while watching the competition. Peng Zhang had made countless enemies now, and even the other members of the 5 groups hated him to the core. Chapter 433. The first match of the top 20 was between Daybreak sects Duan Yu and Ghost factions Peng Zhang. Elder Ghost was a bit nervous. Their sect only had 1 person who entered the top 20. If they were eliminated this time, then they really would have no face left. If they couldn't even enter the top 10, how could they face the sect master when they returned? They would most likely be hacked to death by the sect master. Peng Zhang, you have to do well. Elder Ghost silently cheered for Peng Zhang in his mind. Peng Zhang coldly looked at the youth who was slowly walking up the stage with his arms folded. The youth was wearing a brocade robe and long shoes. He held a raven bone fan in his hand, and his face was as handsome as jade. Duan Yu was wielding a weapon. This was her first time seeing a youth wielding a weapon. Arbor's eyes brightened slightly. This was definitely the rhythm of beating Peng Zhang to death. Not bad, not bad, Darling Chow liked it. This Peng Zhang should have died long ago. He bounced around endlessly and made her so busy. Peng Zhang released the 1,000-faced venomous spider. As soon as it was released, the 1,000-faced venomous spider excitedly crawled around his feet, hissing as it brewed its venom. "Summon your mystic beast," Peng Zhang said haughtily. Duan Yu sneered. "Do I need to summon my mystic beast to deal with you guys? Don't joke around." He didn't say anything else and flung the raven bone fan out. The raven bone fan abruptly flew in front of Peng Zhang, but it was blocked by the mystic energy Peng Zhang channeled, unable to advance even half an inch. Peng Zhang sneered and was about to mock when his pupils abruptly contracted. Countless specks of cold light flew out from the raven bone fan and whizzed towards Peng Zhang's surroundings before exploding in succession. Peng Zhang's expression abruptly changed. He mustered all the mystic energy in his body to launch a full-scale defense, but how could he make it in time? How could he have known that this punk would use a killing move as soon as he started? He didn't give the other party any time to prepare. This was not an ordinary concealed weapon. When the cold light exploded on his body, he could clearly feel that every bit of the cold light that flew out from the black bone fan contained a strong, profound energy. The mystic energy he used to defend himself was completely unable to block the specks of cold light flying out of the raven bone fan. Peng Zhang could feel that the defensive power around his body was weakening, and he could only activate his profound energy in a fluster to protect his body. He even shouted angrily, "1,000-faced venomous spider!" Hiss! The 1,000-faced venomous spider swiftly crawled towards Duan Yu's leg. In the blink of an eye, the raven bone fan flew back into Duan Yu's hand. Duan Yu leaped, and his slender figure streaked across the air like a shadow. His long, loose hair suddenly swayed slightly. Hundreds of cold lights suddenly shot out from his hair and pounced on the thousand-faced venomous spider on the ground. Hua! Everyone watched nervously, and many people couldn't help but stand up. Elder Ghost's face was even more ashen. His fingers that were pinching the armrest had already turned slightly purple. "You've done well, Peng Zhang. You're the only one left in the sect." After Duan Yu closed the raven bone fan in his hand, he flicked it slightly with his raised wrist. The black bone fan abruptly transformed into a long sword. Following the youth's figure, it was suddenly delivered to Peng Zhang's throat. The blazing sun was like fire, the sunlight shining down. At that moment, everyone felt as if the youth's figure that was suspended in midair had become transparent. The long sword slashed open Peng Zhang's neck. Peng Zhang turned pale with fright as his eyes bulged. He only heard cracking sounds coming from his throat, as if something warm was slowly flowing out. Bam! Peng Zhang powerlessly crashed to the ground. Dejected, Elder Ghost drooped his head down, laying down on the stool in defeat. Chapter 434. The youth gracefully landed on the ground and withdrew his long sword, turning it into a fan again as he gently waved it. Needless to say, this handsomeness not only made the coitus sect's love-struck infatuated, but even their own Daybreak sect's female disciples clasped their faces and called him senior martial brother. When Xixia Valley's Valley Master rushed up, Peng Zhang had already breathed his last. His venomous spider was still hanging on by a thread after being attacked by 100 cold glints, but it immediately died the moment its master died. With one man and one beast's corpses strewn across the stage, the Valley Master didn't know what to say anymore. Say that the youth was too ruthless and killed his opponent in a few moves? But he didn't even summon out his mystic beast. He clearly went easy on him. In the end, it was still because Peng Zhang was too weak. Duan Yu was careless and killed him. In a moment of carelessness. Xixia Valley's Valley Master comforted himself like this, but even he couldn't continue making up this lie. After Xixia Valley's Valley Master announced the results of the match, Duan Yu jumped down from the stage and excitedly ran toward Abba. "Jojo, I killed that bad guy. Are you happy?" Duan Yu's question caused the Ghost Faction disciples' faces to darken. "Happy," Abba replied bluntly. "Humph." Emolienne rolled her eyes at him. "I'll do it in one move." "Bah." Duan Yu simply moved a small square stool and squeezed himself next to Abba. "Jojo, what grudge do you have with Mu Liangde? Tell me about it." Everyone pricked up their ears. After 2 more matches, it would be Abba's match against Mu Liangde. Everyone felt that it would definitely be worth watching. Of course, they were also very curious as to why this little junior sister of the Holy Water Sect kept wanting to challenge Mu Liangde one-on-one. Abba tilted his head and pondered. "Enemy." The little fellow suddenly thought of something and left her seat to run to Daybreak Sect's Sect Master Liang Wanshan. She cupped her hands respectfully. "Sect Master, I'm going to kill your sect's disciple, Mu Liangde, in a moment. It has nothing to do with our sections. This is a personal grudge between me and him. Please forgive me if I'm overboard." The stifled Sect Master Liang, the Heavenly Tao Sect's Sect Master, Situ Min, laughed. "Sect Master Liang, this little fellow came to greet you." Murong Sun also found her disciple unbearably adorable. When she received Liang Wanshan's speechless gaze, she broke into laughter and said, "I really don't know why. However, this disciple of mine has always said whatever she wants to say. If she says that she has a grudge against your virtue, then that's it. Since it's a personal grudge, this sect master shouldn't interfere too much." Liang Wanshan was also speechless. "It's just that Mu Liangde isn't as ordinary as you think." Liang Wanshan said hesitantly, "You might not be able to defeat him." "Sect Master Liang, don't worry. I'll definitely kill him." The little fellow swore and ran off. Liang Wanshan had a stifled look on his face. "Why am I getting more and more worried?" Everyone burst into laughter. Why did it sound like Sect Master Liang was going to kill Mu Liangde in the end and even told the Sect Master not to worry? It was too comical. Aba ran back to Molien's side and told Duanyu after sitting down, "I just greeted your Sect Master. I said that I'll kill Mu Liangde in a moment, and he agreed." Everyone looked at her like she was a little oddball and simply didn't know what to say. Duanyu immediately lost his integrity and encouraged, "Jojo, do your best. You can do it." "Emolien, young man, where's your integrity? You're too shameless." Chapter 435. For the next 2 matches, they stopped after a certain point and were relatively harmonious. Xue Xiao and Bailey Shi fought, and Bailey Shi won. Wei Nanfeng and a Purple Firmament faction disciple fought, and Wei Nanfeng won. The 4th match was Aba and Mu Liangde's match. The two were silent the entire time as they ascended the stage. They looked at each other and didn't speak for a long time. "I heard that you're also a talisman practitioner? Let me experience it." It was rare for Aba to be in the mood to speak before the battle. Mu Liangde's face was gentle as he courteously bowed to Aba. "Little junior sister, you should make the first move. You can summon that snow leopard of yours first. Just use the talismans when I tell you to. You like to talk so much nonsense." "If you won't use it, I'll use it." Aba swung her hand, and a row of talismans flew out and suddenly leaped in front of Mu Liangde. Mu Liangde's eyes abruptly constricted. He raised his dumbfounded face and foolishly looked at the little girl who suddenly made a move. What was going on? Mu Liangde was truly dumbfounded. Ever since he left Guanlon City's main residence, he really hadn't seen anyone who could throw out so many talismans in one go in all these years. His first thought was, is it fake? However, that row of talismans all gathered around him and abruptly tightened. Binding Talisman Matrix. Our dear Xiao Mu had long planned out how to deal with this Mu Liangde. Wasn't this person a talisman practitioner? Then she would use talisman matrices to deal with him and let him die a worthy death. However, she seemed to have overestimated this Mu Liangde. Staring at Mu Liangde, who was flustered in the binding talisman matrix and continuously using his shoulder and elbow to strike left and right, Aba's eyes narrowed in displeasure. She asked in an extremely dissatisfied tone, "Are you really a talisman practitioner? Why can't you even crack such a simple binding talisman matrix?" This kind of binding talisman matrix was one of the more basic types of talisman matrices, and it only used beginner talismans. Even so, she could make Mu Liangde, a talisman practitioner, into such a sorry state? Aba couldn't help but suspect that the person in front of her might just be a fake. Mu Liangde's expression truly changed. Binding talisman matrix. This was actually the binding talisman matrix that Patriarch once sighed and yearned for? Why did this girl know how to use talisman matrices? What's going on? None of the talisman patrician families in Guanlon City knew how to use the talisman array. How could this young lady use it? Mu Liangde couldn't believe his eyes. Moreover, from the girl's tone, it seemed that this binding glyph array was only the most basic glyph array to her. Who was she? Hurry up and use your talisman. Aba glared at him unhappily. You don't have to go easy on me. Which eye of yours saw me going easy on you? Thus, a hilarious scene appeared on the stage. The little girl stood at the side of the stage and glared at Mu Liangde, who was trapped in the binding talisman array. What are you doing? Come out. Mu Liangde was speechless. Under the little fellow's repeated urging, he couldn't help but say angrily, Little girl, don't go overboard in everything you do. Even if our patriarch were to come, he might not be able to immediately decipher this talisman formation of yours. What's more, it's just me. Xiao Mu creased her brows, truly dissatisfied to the extreme in her heart. She had originally thought that if this guy was a talisman expert, she wouldn't kill him first. She would first exchange a few pointers with him, then kill him. Hearing him say this, she felt uncomfortable all over, and the fury in her heart surged. You big liar! Go to hell! Countless talismans flew out with a whoosh. He even said that he was a talisman practitioner? This stinky, shameless liar. Just looking at him made her angry. How dare he lie to her? What a waste of time. Everyone. Chapter 436. Liar, she really wanted to kill him. However, she also really wanted to test the power of other talisman masters. She had never competed with other talisman masters in all her years of drawing talismans. It felt so novel and she really wanted to give it a try. Countless talismans flew out from under her sleeves and floated in front of the stupefied Mu Liangde. F***CK, F***CK, F***CK. What the hell was this? Where did this girl get so many talismans? Mu Liangde's eyes were dazed, and his mind was in a mess. These talismans floating in front of him were engraved with runes that he could not understand at all? No, he could understand a few of them. He understood the beginner-level speed talisman, the beginner-level strength talisman, and the beginner-level safety talisman. However, he actually could not understand a single one of the mysterious runes on the remaining 200 or so talismans. Heavens, although he was only from a side branch of the talisman patrician family, he had studied in the main family for a period of time after all, so he knew the general standard of talisman masters. Although there was no lack of people who were more talented and intelligent than him, he was definitely not the worst. But now, he felt that the talismans he drew were just a pile of **T in front of the little girl's talismans. The onlookers were simply speechless. Why was this scene so funny? What happened to the promised fierce battle? Why did they only see a circle of floating talismans surrounding Mu Liangde? The latter was like a clown, bumping around in this circle of talismans, but no matter what he did, he was unable to shake off that circle of talismans. The funniest thing was that the little fellow was actually anxious outside the circle of talismans and repeatedly urged others to quickly come out. You didn't throw this talisman array at others? You're anxious now? The onlookers were speechless. They asked themselves honestly, if any of them were in Mu Liangde's position, they would definitely not feel good and would definitely be driven crazy. Take out your talismans, hurry up. The little girl pulled a long face as she impatiently glared at Mu Liangde, who was trapped in the binding talisman array. You! Mu Liangde was about to go crazy from anger. Was this girl born to piss people off? Now that he was trapped in this talisman array, there was nothing he could do. Even if he took out talismans, he couldn't throw them out of this talisman array. He was completely bound in this area. Mu Liangde felt that this girl was doing it on purpose. She said that on purpose to trample on his pride and dignity. Arber's black eyes widened. He was so angry that he wanted to stomp his feet. Was this person an idiot? Why did it feel like that idiot was speaking to him in a completely different world? She had already asked him to take out his talisman, so why didn't he do so? She really wanted to see what other talisman masters were like. She urgently wanted to know what level she, as an intermediate-level symbol master, was at among the symbol masters. She was so angry that Mu Liangde, this stupid fellow, couldn't even fulfill such a small wish for her. A Violet Firmament faction disciple who was closest to the arena kindly reminded her, "Little junior sister, I think that Mu Liangde probably can't walk out of the talisman array you set up. If you want him to come out, then remove the talisman array." The battle between the two of them made the onlookers anxious. You're so stupid. How can you not even crack such a basic binding talisman array? You're definitely not a talisman master. You big liar. You fooled everyone in Daybreak Sect. Our dear Qiao Mu angrily said. Chapter 437. Arber's words immediately enraged Mu Liangde so much that his lungs were about to explode. How was he not a talisman practitioner? He was an orthodox talisman practitioner, all right? He came from a prestigious family. What kind of joke was this? Mu Liangde furiously took out 7 to 8 talismans from his inner world and flung them one by one at Arber. I'm a talisman practitioner. I'm a talisman practitioner from Guanlon City's Mu family. What would a little girl like you know? Arba scooped up those yellow talismans and carefully examined them one by one. She was so angry that she threw them all to the ground and stomped on them indignantly. "You liar! I knew how to draw these lousy beginner-level talismans when I was 7 years old. You still want to lie to me? You clearly stole these beginner-level talismans from who knows where, and you still dare to say that you drew them yourself. Shameless!" Mu Liangde widened his eyes. However, the onlookers only felt that this scene was extremely exciting. From little junior sister's words, they completely understood one thing. She knew how to draw talismans when she was only 7 years old and was still a baby. Of course, Mu Liangde also understood. He stuttered in shock. You? Who is your master?" Arba looked at Mu Liangde with disappointment. Her wish to spar with a talisman practitioner was completely dashed. Fortunately, she actively accepted the challenge last night and even drew 200 different talismans. What use was that? She had already completely lost the mood to talk now. Emo Lien was all too familiar with this expression of hers. With one look, she knew that the little fellow wouldn't be able to talk anymore. Sure enough, she suddenly released her small hand and threw a little chick into the air. At the same time, she summoned a ferrule from her conscious and swung it straight at Mu Liangde without another word. The 60 binding talismans moved again and circled around Mu Liangde with a whoosh. Greatly alarmed, Mu Liangde hurriedly dodged and shouted, "Mystic beast, come out!" Shriek! A shrill shriek came from midair, and the large cyan blue bird swooped down and spat out a large cloud of icy mist. In a single exchange, it froze the mystic beast that Mu Liangde had just summoned into a layer of frost. Then, it lightly waved its sharp claws. With a soft pu sound, the Xian beast that was sealed in the snow was immediately smashed into pieces by the Qing Wan's claw and fell to the ground. This time, everyone was really shocked. Wei Nanfeng rolled and jumped up from the stool, his eyes staring straight as he subconsciously waved the distinguished scholar fan in his hand, muttering incessantly, "Savage, savage! What kind of Xian beast was this? This little girl is too scary. Amazing, amazing!" Princess Mi, who was at the side, slapped her thigh and cheered. "This is what a hot-blooded battle is like. Ha ha ha." Mu Liangde's expression completely changed. He suddenly felt a terrifying aura of death approaching. The binding glyph array once again encircled his body. At the same time, the little girl had already raised her fist and rushed in front of him. Boom! A fist wrapped in dense profound energy directly bombarded Mu Liangde's body. Mu Liangde blocked with a backhand, but due to the binding glyph array, most of his profound energy was restrained and unable to be used. As a result, he didn't even receive the little girl's first punch and directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a kite with a broken string, he flew out backwards. The little fellow chased after him and swung her fist again. Another fist wrapped in profound energy. This time, it directly hammered a large hole in the arena, trapping Mu Liangde inside. Chapter 438. Immediately after a series of explosions, everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the new hole in the stage, but Mu Liangde had already disappeared. From the looks of it, he should have completely fallen into that hole. The little girl expressionlessly stood at the edge of the hole and stared at Xixia Valley's Valley Master, who had flown onto the stage, for a while. Xixia Valley's Valley Master speechlessly stared at her for a long time before ordering 2 disciples to go forward and carry Mu Liangde out of the hole. The onlookers couldn't help but be stupefied when they took a closer look. How could Mu Liangde's former graceful and exuberant face be seen? His entire face was even fatter than a pig's head, and his entire body was covered in blood. You. Mu Liangde was hanging on by a thread as he glared at Arba with his eyes that had swollen into slits. He couldn't spit out another word for a long time. Mu Liangde, do you still remember Qiao Zhongbang, who entered Daybreak sect at the same time as you? Arba asked in a clear and cold voice as she stood with her hands behind her back. Qiao Zhongbang? Qiao Zhongbang? He didn't know how many years it had been since someone had mentioned this name to him. That youth who came from the countryside, that youth who was quite talented and was quite well liked by his master back then. His age was about the same as his, so he should be in his 30s now. This little girl was called Arbor? Realization suddenly dawned on Mu Liangde, and he struggled to raise his head from the stretcher. His deformed face was slightly contorted as he strenuously enunciated each word. You? You're Qiao Zhongbong's daughter? That's right. Arbor nodded and looked at him solemnly. Back then, you saw that my father's talent was better than yours, so you were afraid that he would steal your limelight in front of Wei Cheng. Thus, you secretly poisoned him and damaged his mystic meridians, causing him to be driven out by Wei Cheng. I am Qiao Zhongbong's daughter. I came to avenge my father. Do you have any objections? Everyone. Could he say anything if he had any objections? Could he beg for mercy if he had any objections? The little girl didn't wait for Mu Liangde to continue speaking and continued, since you don't have any objections, you can go on your way with peace of mind. Wait. Mu Liangde narrowed his swollen eyes and coughed. You dare to kill me? I am a member of Guanlan City's Mu clan. My clan's background is so powerful, how dare you? Before Mu Liangde could finish his nonsense, the little girl waved her small hand and directly threw a handful of colorless and odorless powder at him. What happened afterwards really was only a fleeting moment. It was so fast that even Xixia Valley's Valley Master, who was standing beside Mu Liangde, couldn't react in time. Mu Liangde, who was half sitting on the stretcher, rolled off the stretcher in pain. He covered his face with both hands and howled incessantly. After rolling on the arena for a while, his voice completely disappeared, and his entire person lay upright on the arena. Arbor's small face was stoic as he looked at Mu Liangde and shook his head in disappointment. I thought that you would at least be able to resist for a moment because of your research on poisons. Yet unexpectedly, he couldn't even resist for 2 minutes. He reckoned that he had also brought that bag of vicious medicinal powder from his home back then. Did he think that he could be so awesome just because he had a powerful clan background? Wasn't he just a weakling at the mercy of others? Xixia Valley's Valley Master glared at the little girl in front of him and was tongue-tied for a long time. He couldn't help but say angrily, "Little girl, the results of the competition were already out just now. You shouldn't have poisoned him and poisoned him to death." Arbor blinked. Didn't he die from his severe injuries? Chapter 439. Xixia Valley's Valley Master was simply infuriated by this child and glared at her back for a while before ordering people to carry Mu Liangde away. It was just that the deep hole in the arena could not be repaired right away. After the top 10 competition's name list was released, each of the 3 sects had 2 disciples qualified. Just based on the number of people, it was a complete victory. Ghost Faction and Myriad Faction's disciples were eliminated. Only Purple Firmament Faction had 2 people qualified, while Coitus Faction and Omni Faction each had 1 person qualified. They were Coitus Faction's Qi Mei and Omni Faction's Ning Bihuan. Unfortunately, the next match was Omni Faction's Ning Bihuan versus Coitus Faction's Qi Mei. After Ning Bihuan ascended the stage, she hugged her silver spear and stood there with a dark expression. Although her face was not much different from her younger sister, Ning Baifan's, it was much gloomier than Ning Baifan's. She looked like someone owed her several million yuan all day long. Fortunately, she did not talk much and was not as annoying as her younger sister. After the little girl poisoned Mu Liangde to death, she was in a good mood and sat there listening to her senior sister's gossip. They were talking about Coitus Faction's Granny Witch. I asked around. The reason Granny Witch hated Eldest Aunt Master so much was because her face was disfigured by Eldest Aunt Master back then. Chong Yushi was like an information broker, showing off the first-hand information she just obtained. Where did you ask around? As Morong Sun's eldest disciple, Su Shanshan did not know her master had such a story. Shui Xiao couldn't resist laughing. Where else could she ask around? Second Aunt Master most likely told her. Chong Yushi rubbed her hands and giggled mischievously. Then do you want to hear it? Tell us quickly. The senior sisters hastily urged Chong Yushi not to keep them in suspense when they heard such an interesting story. At this time, a purple talisman floated in front of the little girl's eyes. She took out several cans of snacks and fruit in succession and distributed them to the senior sisters. The senior sisters couldn't help but be amused. Oh my, look at their little junior sister. She took out food as soon as she heard a story. Although she didn't say it, she was definitely 120% curious about their master's story. When the disciples from the other two sects who were close to each other saw the little fellow handing out food, they also came over to divide it up. It was supposed to be a martial arts competition, but they made it seem like a gathering of the masses. Let me tell you, didn't Granny Witch from the Joyous sect capture many beautiful men as vessels back then? As he said this, his finger continuously pointed at Situ Yi, Wei Nanfeng, Duan Yu, and the others who had come forward. People like this, and this, they're definitely targets for Granny Witch to capture. The handsome men all had innocent looks on their faces. The demonic art she practices is to absorb people's yang energy. The little girl silently took a bite of the apple and raised her head to look at Chong Yushi, who was getting more and more ridiculous with her words. She silently turned her head away. Emolienne couldn't help but laugh as she glanced at her. She raised her hand to remove a small piece of fruit peel from the corner of her lips. In short, she's using people as vessels to refine that thing in other people's bodies, such as profound energy and profound energy, to increase her own profound energy. It's said that it can even preserve her youth and beauty. Chong Yushi finally hit the nail on the head and vividly described, that night, it was a dark and windy night. Granny Witch captured several beautiful men and was at the critical juncture of absorbing their mystic energy. Eldest Ant Master suddenly broke through the window and entered. Pfft. Chapter 440. Just hearing Chong Yushi's description was quite comical, so it could be imagined how delightful that scene was back then. After Eldest Ant Master broke the window and entered, she yelled, "I'm about to die." How did you know that Eldest Ant Master yelled, "I'm about to die"? Right. How did you know? Everyone asked curiously. Second Ant Master must have made it up. Shui Xiao pursed her lips and said with a smile, "How is that making it up?" Chong Yushi glared at her. Eldest Ant Master yelled, "I'm about to die," and then rushed up. She lifted Granny Witch, who was at the critical juncture of her cultivation, and gave her a violent beating. And then? Everyone's eyes turned round as they questioned her curiously. What else is there? Apparently, Eldest Ant Master broke Granny Witch's cultivation on the spot. Her fair, tender, and juicy face turned into her current appearance in minutes. Chicken skin and crane hair. Teske. She's very different from her past self. Chong Yushi spoke too loudly. So much so that Granny Witch and the rest all heard her, and they shot stern gazes in their direction. The Holy Water sect's senior and junior sisters stuck out their tongues in laughter. They all pretended not to see the coitus faction's man-eating expression and averted their gazes. Everyone lowered their voices and continued to laugh and chat for a while. They all thought that it was no wonder Granny Witch looked like she wanted to eat someone when she saw Eldest Ant Master. It turned out that there was such a thing going on. At this time, after everyone finished gossiping, they finally discovered that Ning Bihuan had been standing alone on the stage for quite a while. At this time, Ning Bihuan hugged her silver spear and asked impatiently, "Is that coitus faction's Chi Mei are coming to compete or not? If she doesn't want to compete, then treat it as a forfeit and directly announce the results." However, Granny Witch's expression was very unsightly. Her expression was already unsightly enough when everyone in the Holy Water sect knew about her gossip just now. At this time, Mei only went to relieve herself, but she was even more displeased that she still hadn't returned. After a while, when Ning Bihuan was already so impatient that she wanted Xixia Valley's Valley Master to announce the results again, a figure wrapped in a black cloak suddenly jumped onto the stage. At first glance, Granny Witch discovered that the person under the cloak wasn't her disciple Chi Mei. She stood up at once and berated with a slightly grave expression, "Who are you? You're not Mei. What did you do to Mei, The people from the other sects were naturally not familiar with Chi Mei, When they heard what Granny Witch said, they could not help but feel a little strange. Why were there still people rushing to replace Chi Mei, in the arena to fight Ningbi Huan? Ningbi Huan wasn't an easy bone to chew on. However, the person on stage didn't say much, and directly sent out a wave of profound energy towards Ningbi Huan. Ningbi Huan raised her eyebrows. She raised her silver spear and charged forward. The two of them exchanged dozens of blows. Ningbi Huan curled her lips and coldly said, "Who the hell are you? You're not a disciple of Coitus sect, are you?" The person who came did not make a sound. However, Murong Sun had already recognized the person at this time. Her face instantly darkened, and her complexion was quite unsightly. Yang Shirong looked at her expression and asked curiously, "What's wrong, senior sister?" "It was Ling Min," Murong Sun said coldly. "What?" The two peak masters couldn't help but feel slightly surprised. They all knew that Murong Sun did not bring Yi Ling Min with her on this trip, so her sudden appearance meant that she escaped from Sky Peak's Duantian Cliff. Chapter 441. Yi Ling Min actually escaped from Sky Peak's Duantian Cliff on her own and entered the arena to compete without permission? Her guts were already abnormally big. At this time, Coitus faction's Chi Mei ran over, flustered and exasperated. Everyone turned to look and saw that unlucky woman's stench wafting over, as if she had crawled out of a cesspit. "Master, that person Chi Mei was so drunk from her own stench that she cried. How could she have known that when she went to relieve herself normally, someone actually covered her head with a sack from behind and beat her up? Her entire body was covered with the smell of feces and urine. Woo. Too infuriating, truly infuriating. Disaster fell from the sky when she was relieving herself. This kind of luck was indeed unparalleled. Everyone looked at this stinky girl with sympathetic gazes. Even her master, Granny Witch, disliked her stench and hurriedly avoided her when she walked over. It was truly an unexpected disaster with overwhelming bad luck. Such a delicate beauty coughing and stinking of urine truly didn't smell good. "Hurry up and go wash up," Granny Witch angrily rebuked. She still dared to make a fool of herself in front of others with such a pestilence appearance. Her old face was completely thrown away by this idiot. "Senior sister, I'll accompany you to wash up." Chi Hua, who was dressed in plain clothes and only had a small pink beaded flower on her head, walked over and draped a robe over the stinky Chi Mei. Chi Mei also knew that if she continued to stand here, she would definitely be an eyesore to her master. Hearing this, she could only follow Chi Hua to wash up and change clothes, hating the woman who snatched the arena from her to the bone. The two of them didn't walk far when they saw a hunchbacked old man being supported over. To avoid the old man's disdain, Chi Hua hurriedly pulled her senior sister a little closer and left after casting a glance out of the corner of her eye. "Sir, those two are disciples of Coitus faction," Chio-san whispered. "Vulgar women, withered flowers and withered willows." Lu Yizhi coughed a few times and stood still, his cold gaze fixed on the arena. "My lord, the strength of these two lower domain disciples is comparable to our soldiers," Chio-san said. "Humph. He's just an outer court soldier material and doesn't even have the qualifications to guard the inner court." Lu Yizhi's eyes were full of disdain. Suddenly, Lu Yizhi's body stiffened, and his expression changed slightly because Mo Lian and Arbor both turned their heads and gazed coldly at them. At the same time, Duan Yu also turned around with a grin and raised his brow. His gaze swept over Lu Yizhi and Chio-san before withdrawing. Lu Yizhi didn't see Duan Yu and Peng Zhang's battle, so he didn't know how strong this youth was. However, he had a deep impression of Mo Lian. A youth who could control a powerful fire spirit, even he did not dare to easily offend him. At this moment, they were very far away from the arena, but even so, those three people could still sense them. It had to be said that even Lu Yizhi was surprised by their sharp acuity. At this time, the competition on the arena had already entered a white-hot stage. The silver spear in Ning Bihuan's hand suddenly lifted Yi Lingmin's headscarf and cloak, exposing her entire face to everyone. "Senior Sister Yi?" Many holy water sect disciples covered their mouths as they exclaimed softly. Yi Lingmin was holding a willow leaf saber. Because her shoulder had been struck by the mystic energy seeping out from the silver spear, her shoulder was already red. She was extremely furious, and her mind was in a mess, so her saber technique was out of order. Chapter 442. She did not spend so much effort to participate in the competition to lose to this woman in front of her. She wanted to prove to her master that not choosing her to participate in the competition was absolutely a wrong decision. Ning Bihuan creased her brows and coldly said, "Admit defeat. I don't want to take your life, so leave the stage yourself." With a shake of her silver spear, she directly sent Yi Lingmin flying. Yi Lingmin rolled 3 times on the stage before plopping down on the ground. Her eyes revealed her unwillingness to admit defeat, and she ferociously glared at Ning Bihuan. "You think you've won for sure?" The two of them did not summon their mystic beasts from beginning to end, as if they had made a pact together. Ning Bihuan shook her head. "You're a holy water sect disciple, right? You didn't go through the early stages of the competition and directly skipped levels to participate in the finals. This is already against the rules. I didn't bicker with you, so you should quit while you're ahead. I'm telling you, you can't win against me." Yi Lingmin's stubborn temper flared up, and she suddenly flipped her hand, pinching a small bottle in her hand. The eyelids of the 3 peak masters sitting in the front seats all twitched. Murong Sun's face darkened, and she had just shouted Lingmin, when she saw Yi Lingmin uncorking the bottle and drinking the 3 drops of holy water she had preserved until now in one gulp. Holy water sect disciples all knew that holy water was most effective and improved the fastest when it was consumed for the first and second time. Yi Lingmin had been reluctant to consume it a second time and had been accumulating holy water the entire time. Every time she asked Lady Holy Water for more holy water, she would preserve it until today. She swallowed it all in one gulp. The 3 peak masters' expressions were abnormally unsightly. Soon, all the mystic energy from all directions gathered above Yi Lingmin's head, forming a small vortex of stars that continuously gathered inside her body. Until it completely erupted. Yi Lingmin advanced in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone's eyes were filled with intense incredulity. Everyone knew how difficult and dangerous it was for a great level 10 mystic cultivator to advance to a great level 11 mystic cultivator. But what happened just now? Why did Yi Lingmin suddenly break through the barrier of great level 10 mystic cultivator? Before everyone could react, Yi Lingmin had already jumped up on the spot and energetically swung her saber. The lancet spun in the air and whooshed towards Ning Bihuan. Ning Bihuan's silver spear flew up. With a solemn expression, she flicked it at Yi Lingmin's blade. Immediately, she felt her wrists suddenly become heavy and she almost lost her grip on the silver spear. "Let go!" Yi Lingmin shouted in an awe-inspiring manner. She suddenly pulled back her lancet and chopped at Ning Bihuan's left wrist. Ning Bihuan had no choice but to retreat, but the silver spear in her hand was suddenly snatched away by Yi Lingmin. With a kick, she sent it flying. With a whoosh, it landed on the stage and stuck into the ground at an angle. Everyone was silent. Murong Sun's expression was indescribably unsightly. However, Koita Sek's Granny Witch's eyes were filled with doubt. Could this be the legendary holy water spring of the holy water sect? Its effects were truly so good that one could immediately advance from a level 10 great mystic cultivator to level 11 after drinking a mouthful, crushing Ning Bihuan, who was also a great level 10 mystic cultivator, in a matter of minutes? The godly water was really that effective. I won. Amidst the silent audience, Yi Lingmin raised the lancet in her hand above her head and shouted. On the side, Ning Bihuan clutched her chest and silently glanced at her. She directly walked to her silver spear and pulled it out from the ground. Then, she swiftly jumped off the stage and left. Chapter 443. Shisha Valley's Valley Master was baffled and did not know whether he should go on stage to announce the results of the competition. Seeing that no one else was going up, Yi Lingmin jumped down from the stage and walked straight to Morong Sun. She straightened her neck and bowed to the three peak masters. Master and Master. Morong Sun's expression was unsightly to the extreme. She coldly stared at Yi Lingmin and did not say anything. She merely stared at her for a long time. This extremely powerful silent stare caused Yi Lingmin to panic. In reality, it would be best if she could enter closed-door cultivation right now. In order to win the competition just now, she swallowed 3 drops of holy water at once and forcefully raised her cultivation to level 11 Great Mystic Cultivator, obtaining an overwhelming victory. However, in reality, she did not completely assimilate these 3 drops of holy water. If she wanted to completely stabilize her cultivation as a level 11 Great Mystic Cultivator, she still needed a period of closed-door cultivation. She merely wanted to win too much. She wanted to display herself in front of her master and obtain her master's approval and affirmation too much. She wanted her master to know that she, Yi Lingmin, her master's 3rd disciple, was not inferior to anyone else. But right now, her master's aloof gaze made her feel afraid from the bottom of her heart. Yi Lingmin quietly called out, "Master." "Lingmin, it's because I don't know how to teach disciples that your willful, reckless, and lawless personality is today." Morong Sun's disappointed gaze made Yi Lingmin's heart tremble. Why was it like this? She won the fight. Why was her master so disappointed in her even though she won? Didn't she win? "Master." Yi Lingmin completely panicked and looked at the other 2 ant masters in a daze. However, the 2 people she saw had the same grave expression. "Master." Yi Lingmin wanted to reach out and grab Morong Sun's sleeve. However, Morong Sun pushed her back 2 steps. She dazedly stood there and looked up at her unfamiliar master in a daze. "From today onward, you are no longer my disciple. You are also no longer a disciple of the Holy Water Sect. Go," Morong Sun said aloofly. As if struck by lightning, Yi Lingmin staggered back 2 steps and looked up at Morong Sun with tear-filled eyes. She could not help but ask, "Why, Master? Why?" 3rd Senior Sister. The other disciples of First Peak were also dumbfounded. They wanted to surround Morong Sun and dissuade her, but none of them dared to move when they saw Morong Sun's warning gaze. Yi Lingmin suddenly knelt in front of Morong Sun with a plop and wailed, "Master, Master, don't chase me away, Master. Disciple was wrong, Master. Your disciple was disobedient and shouldn't have run away from Duantian Cliff. Master, please forgive me this once. Master, Master, don't chase your disciple away." Morong Sun had already made up her mind. Even if other people came over to put in a few good words for Yi Lingmin, Morong Sun still insisted on expelling Yi Lingmin from the sect. "Master, you can leave. Go back and think about what you did wrong. If you feel guilty in the future, take good care of your former sister when we meet again in the pugilistic world." Morong Sun turned around and did not look at Yi Lingmin again. "Master." Yi Lingmin was completely flustered. She turned around and saw Arbor in a daze. She rushed in front of her and grabbed her arm, begging for mercy. "Little junior sister, help 3rd Senior Sister. Little junior sister, go beg Master. Master likes you the most. If you speak up for me, she will definitely listen to you. Little junior sister, Senior Sister is begging you, wah." Chapter 444. 3rd Senior Sister. Arbor blinked and looked up at Morong Sun, who was standing on the side with her back facing them. She only felt that Master's back was stiff, as if she was hiding 1,000 things that she couldn't say. 3rd Senior Sister, Master is in a fit of anger right now. How about you leave first, and I'll slowly persuade Master? Arbor asked softly. Yi Lingmin glanced at Arbor with teary eyes. "Little junior sister, you'll really help me?" Arbor nodded solemnly. Sorry. Yi Lingmin didn't expect that her little junior sister whom she dissed the first time they met, would disregard former enmity and help her. She tightly grasped the little girl's hands and gripped them tightly. She turned around to glance at Murong Soon's cold back and didn't dare to linger any longer, running away in tears. On the other end, Lu Yizhi and Qiu San's figures had long disappeared. Qiu San supported Lu Yizhi as they walked out of the arena. Lu Yizhi was so excited that he couldn't control himself the entire way, and his entire body was trembling lightly. It's not the holy water spring. It definitely isn't the holy water spring. How was this some holy water spring? Just now, he clearly saw that the holy water sect girl in the competition clearly swallowed 3 drops of water. 3 drops. 3 drops of water immediately raised her from level 10 to level 11 Great Mystic Cultivator. Such a large leap. Ha 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 ha. He was now very clear that the holy water spring was definitely a smokescreen thrown out by the holy water sect to conceal the holy water's true identity. They deceived the world for so many years. Ha ha ha. Great, great, great. A tiny lower star domain's holy water sect could actually do whatever they wanted under the 6 prefectures' noses. How audacious. How was this some holy water spring? It was clearly holy water. Speaking of holy water, one had to mention the 5 spirits' origins. Everyone in the 6 prefectures knew that as long as one comprehended one of the 5 spirits' origins when breaking through to level 15 Great Mystic Cultivator, they could smoothly enter a higher realm and achieve the transition from the mystic realm to the spiritual realm. And among the 10 levels of the water origins, the one and only and unparalleled origin among the origins was holy water. Normally, everyone's comprehension of the 5 spirits' origins was between the 1st and the 5th level. Only those with especially good talent could comprehend the origins of the higher levels. What was the holy water? That was the foundation that could crush all the water spirits below the 9th level. Once the Holy Spirit appeared, no one would be able to contend against it. This was the holy water, holy fire, holy wood, holy earth, and holy lightning of the 5 spirit origins. Quickly go and inform all of Shuntian Prefecture's forces on Seekong Planet. Immediately travel day and night to the holy water sect outside 5 Moon City. We must obtain the sacred water before the other 5 prefectures. Holy water was such an important item, so the holy water sect definitely wouldn't bring it with them when they went out this time. Presumably, it was currently quietly staying in the holy water sect's secret ground, waiting for their Shuntian prefecture to come and harvest it. Ha 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 ha. No, she was waiting for him. Lu Yizhi went to seize it. Yes. Qiu San immediately cupped his fists and left in a hurry. Lu Yizhi looked up at the dark blue sky and narrowed his cold eyes slightly. He coughed several times and sneered. It seems like the weather is about to change. The rest of the competition became dull and boring. Moreover, many people's minds were no longer on the competition. In the end, it was Darling Qiao who obtained victory. Why? Because the other top 4, such as Duan Yu, Su Shanshan, Situ Yi, and Bailey Shi, couldn't be bothered to fight with her, so she automatically advanced to first place. Chapter 445. However, she did not feel excited or joyful at all. In the end, the 3 sects won a complete victory, but there was no joy on the holy water sect's 3 peak masters' faces. When she returned to her courtyard, all the senior sisters ran over to give her gifts. They glorified it by saying that little junior sister had won honor for the holy water sect, so they gave gifts to the champion. Su Shanshan gave her a level 15 mystic dagger and told her that she took it from Maple Pavilion and that it was quite handy. Aba's intuition was a bit strange. Her senior sisters all ran over to give her gifts, and they were all very valuable. What happened? Aba asked seriously. What could happen? Yang Shirong smiled and said, My little disciple. You've been in the sect for so many years, but you've never returned home. How about you go home and take a look this time? Aba nodded. She also had this plan, but she had more or less assimilated her essence water recently, so she could not suppress her cultivation anymore. She planned to find a place to raise her cultivation before going home. Master, are you still angry at 3rd senior sister? Arba walked to Murong Sun and tugged on her sleeve. Can't forgive her? You know what kind of person she is. Master always knew that she was unyielding and competitive, but why was she so angry today? Arba felt that she must have overlooked something. Suddenly, a thought struck her, and Arba hastily asked, "Is it the holy water?" Because third senior sister used holy water on the spot and attracted attention? Then what about the sect's master and senior sisters? Arba only felt that things were a bit off. Silly child, what could happen? Murong Sun said with a smile, "Don't let your imagination run wild. Go rest early. The other sects have to leave Dwelling Valley tomorrow morning. We also have to leave. Child, you haven't returned for so many years, so your parents must be worried. Stay at home for a while when you go back this time. You don't have to rush back since there's nothing going on in the sect anyway." Murong Sun tugged on Arba's hand and quietly instructed, "Being outside is different from being in the sect. Be careful of everything and take good care of yourself along the way." "Young Master Mo is here," Su Shanshan said. Arba walked out, a little unhappy. Emolien took her little hand and squeezed it. "What's wrong? Because I'm leaving tomorrow? Can't bear to part with me?" The little fellow was not in the mood to talk and laugh. She looked up at him sullenly. He suddenly thought of something and rummaged through his purple amulet. He took out a small rectangular iron box and threw it to Emolien. "I don't know how to open this." Emolien couldn't help but laugh. She lowered her head to look at the small rectangular metal box. It was cast so tightly that there wasn't a single opening. "Duan Yu should know." The little fellow was still a bit sullen. "Help me hand it to him so he can study it. If you go back to the sect, then we'll have to go our separate ways tomorrow. Don't leave me with a sour gourd face. The only thing I can't forget is your little sour gourd face." Emolien suddenly reached out to lift her small face. "Chow Chow, give me a serious smile. I really haven't seen you smile in all these years." Arba rolled her eyes at him. How could she smile for no reason? "How about I tell you a joke for you to smile?" Emolien reached out to tease her little face. "Go ahead." The little stoic was not happy at all. Once upon a time, there was a bad guy called Duan Yu. One day, he was beaten to death by a good person called Emolien. Arba. Chapter 446. It really was hilarious. Arba glanced at him and poked his chest with his finger. "It's not funny." Emolien reached out and pulled the little fellow into her arms, chuckling softly as she hugged her. Suddenly, an indignant voice came from the door. Duan Yu dashed over and shouted in a huff, "Of course it's not funny. Jojo, don't listen to his nonsense. I'm an incomparably good person." "Incomparably good?" Emolien threw him a slightly disdainful look before casually smashing that small rectangular metal box at his head. Duan Yu was so angry that he wanted to send it flying with a kick. However, just as his foot was about to touch the small metal box, Emolien's voice leisurely rang out, "Jojo's." Duan Yu staggered, and his kick abruptly changed into a grab. His movements were practiced and smooth as he snatched the small lousy box into his hand. "This should be a concealed weapon box," Emolien said dryly. Duan Yu smugly looked up and cast him a sidelong glance. He snorted and waved the small metal box in his hand, bragging, "Don't tell me it's broken. Let me tell you, this concealed weapon box is a sealing technique passed down from ancient times. Normal people absolutely can't open the seal on the outside. I'm 99% certain that there's good stuff inside." This small metal box had troubled Darling Chow for many years. When she had nothing to do, she would fiddle with it in her hands. She had soaked it in water, roasted it in fire, and even pricked it with a needle before throwing it into a frying pan. Cough, cough. Now that she heard Duan Yu's words, the little fellow pattered over to him with great interest and urged repeatedly, "Hurry and open it." "You can open it too." Duan Yu tossed the small metal box and pulled Arba to his side with one hand. He said with a chuckle, "You have to call me Big Brother." Classmate Mo's face darkened. Duan Yu, that punk, really knew how to push his luck. He originally thought that the icy little fellow would refuse, so Duan Yu was only joking. Who would have thought that the next second, Darling Chow straightforwardly called him Big Brother in a clear and crisp voice. She even impatiently tugged at his sleeve. "Let's go." Duan Yu was taken aback. Mo Lien was furious. His handsome face was ashen as he reached out and pulled the little fellow into his arms. His entire body was filled with low pressure. No matter how slow-witted Xiao Mu was, she could still feel the displeasure that filled her entire body. The little fellow lifted his head from his arms and looked at his expression in bewilderment. He asked in astonishment, "What's wrong?" "You called him brother." Mo Lien gritted her teeth. Aber nodded and turned his stoic face to look at the foolishly smiling Duan Yu. He asked with a frown, "What's wrong with him? If it's not my brother, then is it my sister?" Mo Lien. Why am I speechless? Mo Lien's shoulders trembled, and she lowered her head to hug the little lady with a stifled chuckle. For a moment, she couldn't restrain her laughter. His darling was still young. When Duan Yu returned to his senses and heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He glanced at Mo Lien and harumphed. "What are you laughing at? If I'm the older sister, then you're also the older sister. TSK. Do you think that face of yours is inferior to mine when it comes to pretending to be a girl? Bah. Who's a girl? Your whole family is made up of girls. Jojo, let's go. Don't get touchy. Lead the way." Mo Lien swatted away Duan Yu's restless paw, which earned Duan Yu's furious glare. Chapter 447. The three of them shifted to another room and sat down. After placing the small metal box on the table, Duan Yu took out a dozen or so exquisite tools from his inner world. The little girl propped up her cheeks with both hands as she curiously watched Duan Yu work with her dark eyes. She really couldn't come up with something like this. She was a bit angry just thinking about it. With her brilliant brain, she couldn't even open a concealed weapon box. It was truly infuriating. This kind of concealed weapon box that has been passed down since ancient times was sealed by the ancestors using a kind of pouring technique. It can't be opened even if you slash it with a sword, soak it in water, or burn it with fire. When Duan Yu said this, he reflexively looked up at Miss Chow and discovered a strange expression on her face. Duan Yu couldn't help chuckling in spite of himself. Don't tell me you've already used all the methods I've just mentioned." As he said this, he couldn't help coughing several times while stifling his laughter. Darling Chow harumphed and rolled her eyes at him. Ha 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 ha. Duan Yu couldn't hold back his hearty laughter. Blame her for being uncultured. Now that she was being laughed at, Xiao Mu simply turned her face aside. However, she saw that although Mo Lien didn't laugh out loud like the dunce Duan Yu, he still couldn't conceal the smile in his eyes. That smile was practically flowing out from his pair of slightly curved phoenix eyes. Tisk. Duan Yu controlled his laughter and quickly placated the little fellow. "You can't be blamed for being stupid." Our dear Xiao Mu's eyes widened. This darling wasn't stupid to begin with. Only the Duan family of Guanlon City knows a thing or two about this kind of pouring technique. However, they also don't know how to unseal it. That family head of theirs is absolutely stupid. Even after learning concealed weapons for so many years, he probably can't open it. Duan Yu pursed his lips in disdain when he recalled the faces of those people from the Duan family. Aber quickly urged, "Hurry up and do it. Don't tell me you're going to waste time until daybreak." Duan Yu's smile faded and he lowered his head to take the small metal box in his hand. He took out a small pointed awl forged from ice crystals and lightly fiddled with the four corners of the metal box. She didn't see how he did it, but his movements were so practiced that it dazzled the eyes. There was only a light, click, sound. There was a small hole in the top of the small iron box that was so tightly sealed that there wasn't even the slightest gap. The three heads immediately gathered together, and Duan Yu simply stood up with a half-bent waist. He turned the small metal box upside down and picked up a small metal bowl in passing. A stream of corrosive liquid flowed out of the small hole, and when it fell into the small iron bowl, it made a sizzling sound. Wow, that hidden weapon master used poison to seal this hidden weapon box. Abba recalled that she had thrown this thing into the frying pan. Cough, cough, cough. Fortunately, this concealed weapon master's craftsmanship was exceptional. Otherwise, wouldn't Fat Sis's 30-year-old family heirloom have been ruined? Duan Yu couldn't help teasing her when he saw the little fellow's odd expression while his hands busied themselves. What? Did you fry it in a pot of oil? Baby Chow. Why am I suddenly speechless? The two youths looked at her little face and couldn't help but burst into laughter. You really did bomb before? Humph. Abba propped up her chin with both hands and simply turned her head to the side to ignore them. Duan Yu's movements were rather fast. As he spoke, he had already poured out all the corrosive poison from the small hole. Then, he took out a long and thin needle. His eyes were focused, and his movements were extremely slow as he inserted the needle. Chapter 448. Abba nervously held her breath. Was this strange little iron box that had perplexed her for so many years finally going to be solved? Her large, dark eyes emitted a joyous glint. Crack, 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 crack. Duan Yu put down the needles in his hand and quickly placed the little iron box flat on the table. His eyes narrowed as he looked at it. The sound of a delicate spring opening could be heard from the iron box's interior. Suddenly, the two youths reached out at the same time and pulled Abba to her feet, dragging her backward. This curious darling was stretching out her large head at the time and was caught off guard, causing her to topple backward. Emolienne swiftly caught her and carried her up by the waist before swiftly retreating out the door. Just as the three of them stepped out of the door, Emolienne hugged the little fellow tightly in her arms and pressed her down, causing the three of them to lie down on the ground together. They then heard an earth-shattering explosion from inside the door. The perfectly fine door was instantly blown into pieces and completely destroyed. Not only did it alarm everyone from the 3 sects and 5 factions, it even scared Shishia Valley's Valley Master to the point of jumping up from his stool and roaring angrily, "Which bastard is blowing up the room?" Shishia Valley's Valley Master was shocked to the point of jumping up from his chair and roaring angrily, "Which bastard is blowing up the room?" He had already swiftly dashed out the door towards the source of the sound. When the 3 sects and 5 factions, as well as Shishia Valley's large group of disciples, rushed to the door of this room, they saw that the room was in a complete mess. After the explosion, Emolienne and the other two promptly scooped up the metal box that had been blown out of the door and hastily ran away. Who would still foolishly stay in the same spot and wait for someone to berate them? At this time, they were running and flying, only stopping when they were far away from the southern courtyard. This place was a secluded cave in Shishia Valley that was usually uninhabited. The three of them finally sighed in relief and exchanged glances. Abba couldn't help but be amused by this glance. The two handsome youths, who had always tidied themselves up neatly, were now covered in dirt, as if they had jumped out from some corner of the earth. Their long hair was messy, and there was a lot of mud on their faces, making them look funny. Emolienne's white robe was covered in dust. Her entire body was covered in dust. Duan Yu wasn't that good-looking either. His brocade robe's collar was covered in small clumps of dirt, and he was trembling as he stood there. Ha 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 ha. A clear and melodious laughter that was both familiar and somewhat unfamiliar suddenly rang out. The two youths who were tidying up their clothes suddenly turned their heads, their eyes widening at the same time as they looked in shock at the little girl in front of them who was holding her stomach and laughing. Emolienne, who had recovered her wits, flew to the little girl with a whoosh and scooped her into a hug. She excitedly murmured as she hugged her, "Jojo, you smiled, Jojo, you smiled, you smiled." It was no longer that cold and stiff smile that cracked the corners of her mouth, nor was it that expressionless little stoic face. She really smiled. Her smile was so lively and adorable as snow. In that instant, Emolienne only felt as if the entire world had been lit up by her. The grayish-white color suddenly turned into a myriad of colors, and it was extremely beautiful. The slow-witted Duan Yu didn't manage to snatch the little girl, so he circled around the two of them and stretched out his hand, shouting, "Hurry and move aside, move aside." He hadn't seen the little girl smile so happily for half his life. Now that he finally saw it, he only saw it for a second before that rascal Mo Lien blocked him. Truly too hateful. Chapter 449. Jojo. Mo Lien reached out to cup the little girl's small face, which still carried a trace of a smile. He lowered his head and nuzzled her smooth forehead, saying, "I hope that you will always be like this in the future, happy and happy." It would be even better if she had a permanent smile. Duan Yu couldn't snatch the little girl and could only glare from the side, but he still nodded when he heard this. Although that guy was very hateful, his words seemed to make sense, so he, reluctantly agreed. Auber suddenly reached out to pinch a speck of mud from Mo Lien's face and shouted unhappily, "The mud on your face got on my face." Ha 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 ha. This time, it was Duan Yu's turn to be amused, and he guffawed while pointing at Mo Lien. Mo Lien simply shamelessly picked up the little girl and purposely rubbed against her face. "Right, we're all muddy, so you should join us too." Right. This is called enjoying blessings and enduring misfortune together." Duan Yu interjected. Auber actually guffawed, his pair of dark eyes brimming with mirth as he gazed at Mo Lien like this. It was as if the haze in his heart had dispersed by quite a bit. "Jojo." Mo Lien caressed her small face, unable to contain the smile on her lips. "Thankfully, we slipped away quickly. Otherwise, if we encountered old man Shixia, we would have been nagged by him again." Duan Yu exclaimed as he patted the dust off his sleeves. Mo Lien turned around to glare at him. "You still have the cheek to say that. You even boasted that you were invincible, as if you could immediately open the concealed weapon box in your hands. Now we're all in such a sorry state." "It was an accident, it was an accident." Duan Yu chuckled awkwardly and rubbed his nose. His peach blossom eyes flickered as he cast a bright and charming wink at Auber. "Don't worry, Jojo, it was just a small spring that wasn't turned on earlier, so it ended up like that. I'll do it again this time, and it'll be done right away." Mo Lien hugged Auber, and the two jumped back in unison. What are you doing? Don't look at me with such distrust. Trust, you know. Trust. Go, go, go. Let's go into the cave and make sure we succeed this time." Duan Yu simply ran to their side and grabbed one in each hand, making the two unwilling people follow him into the cave. Succeed or die trying. The illuminating pearl flew high up in the air, illuminating the cave. Mo Lien pulled Auber to sit a little further away, closer to the entrance of the cave. It would be more convenient for them to escape later. "Why are you sitting so far away?" Duan Yu pestered them again and sat down across from them. He picked out a long needle and started fiddling with that hole again. "Don't worry, I'm an experienced worker. It really was just a slip of the hand earlier." Duan Yu looked up with a chuckle and winked at Auber. "Jojo, trust, you know. I'm the person you trust the most." Auber's gaze flickered, and he stared fixedly at the youth. A smile hung on Duan Yu's lips as he skillfully inserted the slender needle. His frivolous smile disappeared and replaced it with a serious expression as he cracked the spring that fit the inside. "Gotcha, gotcha, 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 gotcha." Several sounds rang out in succession, and Auber's heart was pulled by these sounds, and his small face was filled with anxiety. Mo Lien patted his back to comfort him. Suddenly, they heard a very light and crisp crack right next to their ears. The small metal box suddenly peeled open like a flower petal, revealing a transparent, crystalline square box inside. Chapter 450. Through the transparent crystal, one could see a thin piece of paper swaying in the crystal, rolling up and unrolling. It was very lively. "What is this?" Auber exclaimed. "The Chenji treasure blueprint. The two youths exclaimed in unison, their faces full of shock. What is the Chenji treasure blueprint? Aba tugged at Emolien's sleeve. Speaking of the Chenji treasure blueprint, we have to talk about this person, Chenji Z. He was a very impressive trap and concealed weapons master 300 years ago. Duan Yu interrupted. This person was proficient in the art of traps and concealed weapons, and his skills were not simple at all. I was wondering who made this kind of concealed weapon box that had long been lost. So it was him. The art of traps and concealed weapons? Then this whatever map is actually a secret manual on traps and concealed weapons? It was truly bizarre. How did the Holy Water Sect even have this thing? Then this thing is definitely useless to me. Aba was discouraged. She didn't understand traps and concealed weapons, so what did she need this thing for? Here you go. Take it and study it. The little fellow unhappily pushed that transparent crystal towards Emolien and Duan Yu. The two youths couldn't help but laugh. Jojo, do you know that if news of this Chenji treasure blueprint leaked out, it would cause a commotion? Emolien helplessly looked at this ignorant little girl. Where did you get it? The little girl was disappointed. To her, it was useless even if it caused a commotion in the 6 prefectures and 3 provinces. A lousy map was completely useless to her. No matter how much of a commotion it caused, it couldn't excite her. When I went to Maple Pavilion to choose mystic techniques, it followed me all the way neurotically. She was depressed at the mention of this. At that time, she was running out of time, and this metal box tricked her just like that. This darling was still unhappy. Duan Yu couldn't help but be amused. Jojo, let me tell you, you really picked up a treasure this time. Really? What? What treasure? To the two youths who liked to study traps and concealed weapons, it was a treasure. But to her, it was just a piece of H*T map. Seeing the little girl's gloomy face, the two youths laughed and stopped teasing her. Emolien said, Duan Yu is right this time. This really is a treasure. That's because this map itself is a divine artifact that Tianjizi spent his entire life forging. Ah! Qiao Mu was dumbfounded. This map was a divine artifact? What was a divine artifact? Emolien flicked her finger lightly on her little head and couldn't help but chuckle. What the hell is a divine artifact? You don't have to care about that. All you need to know is that he's extremely powerful. Come, be obedient and form a contract with it first. At the same time, I will help you seal the divine artifact and suppress it to a level suitable for your current cultivation. Otherwise, you won't be able to use it. But what about the hidden weapon technique inside? She had no use for it. The little fellow asked with a conflicted expression. Stupid. Duan Yu chuckled. Wouldn't it be fine if you formed a contract with it first and then handed the secret manual to us? This is a divine weapon. Why are you still hesitating? Hurry, hurry, hurry. It'll be daybreak if you hesitate any longer. No matter how she looked at it, this thin piece of paper didn't look like a divine weapon at all. Aba expressionlessly reached out her small hand and stuck it against the outer crystal shell of the map, injecting a wisp of mystic energy. It really was only a small wisp of mystic energy, so small that it was almost negligible, but the entire crystal shell immediately peeled off. The map inside rapidly jumped up and abruptly emitted a dazzling golden light. Allow me to go out for a walk. The rest of the chapter will be even better at night. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.